In the brutal hierarchy of America's most notorious prisons, respect is a currency more valuable than gold. It's earned through fear, violence, or an almost mythical presence that transcends the concrete walls and iron bars. But there was one man who commanded respect in a way that defied every rule of the criminal underworld. His name was Ellsworth Raymond Johnson, better known as Bumpy Johnson, and even the prison guards who were supposed to contain him couldn't help but acknowledge his unique power. This is the story of how a Harlem crime boss became a legend not just on the streets, but behind bars, where the usual rules of power simply didn't apply to him. By the time you finish this video, you'll understand why Bumpy Johnson wasn't just another gangster doing time. He was something else entirely. To understand why prison guards respected Bumpy Johnson, we first need to understand who this man really was. Born in 1905 in Charleston, South Carolina, Ellsworth Raymond Johnson moved to Harlem in 1919 during the Great Migration. He was just 14 years old, but the streets of Harlem would soon become his kingdom. The nickname Bumpy came from a peculiar bump on the back of his head, a physical marker that would become as recognizable as his reputation. But it wasn't his appearance that made him legendary. It was his intelligence, his strategic mind, and his unwavering code of ethics in a world where morality was usually the first casualty. By the 1930s, Bumpy had become the right-hand man of Stephanie St. Clair, known as the Queen of Numbers. Together, they fought against Dutch Schultz's attempts to take over Harlem's lucrative numbers racket. This wasn't just about money. It was about protecting Black Harlem from white mobsters who saw the neighborhood as territory to exploit. When Bumpy eventually went to prison, he didn't arrive as just another inmate. He arrived as Harlem royalty, as a man who had already built a reputation that preceded him through every corridor and cell block. Bumpy Johnson's first significant prison stint was at Alcatraz, often called the Rock, America's most infamous maximum security prison. Alcatraz was designed to break the toughest criminals, to strip them of their identity and reduce them to numbers. But Bumpy Johnson was different. From the moment he arrived, something unusual happened. The guards noticed that other inmates reacted to his presence. There was no violence, no grandstanding, no attempt to establish dominance through brutality. Instead, there was something quieter and far more powerful: deference. What the guards observed was that Bumpy commanded respect through intelligence rather than intimidation. He spoke multiple languages, including French and Italian, which he'd taught himself. He read voraciously, everything from philosophy to poetry. While other inmates spent their time plotting violence or succumbing to despair, Bumpy turned his cell into a classroom. The guards had seen tough guys before. They'd seen men who could fight, men who could intimidate, men who ran criminal empires on the outside. But they'd never seen someone quite like Bumpy Johnson, who carried himself with the dignity of a scholar and the authority of a king, even in prison stripes. One of the most remarkable aspects of Bumpy Johnson's time in prison was his unwavering adherence to a personal code of conduct. In the criminal world, codes are often flexible, bent to suit circumstances or abandoned entirely when self-preservation demands it. Not with Bumpy. He never informed on anyone, ever. In an environment where snitching could reduce your sentence or earn you privileges, Bumpy refused to play that game. The guards knew this about him. They knew that no matter what incentives they offered, no matter what pressures they applied, Bumpy Johnson would never give up information about his associates or rivals. This created a strange dynamic. The guards respected him for the very quality that should have made him their adversary. Here was a man who, despite being imprisoned, despite being at the mercy of the system, refused to compromise his principles. That kind of integrity is rare anywhere, but in prison, it's almost unheard of. There's a story, possibly apocryphal but widely repeated, about a guard who once tried to pressure Bumpy into informing on a prison smuggling operation. Bumpy reportedly looked at him and said, "I'd rather do my time standing up than walk out of here on my knees." The guard never asked again. Perhaps the most paradoxical aspect of Bumpy Johnson's prison reputation was his role as a mediator and peacemaker. Here was a man imprisoned for violent crimes, yet he became known for preventing violence within the prison walls. Prison guards face a constant challenge: maintaining order in an environment designed to concentrate society's most volatile individuals. Riots, fights, and violent incidents are occupational hazards. But when Bumpy Johnson was present, something changed. Inmates who would normally settle disputes with shivs and fists would bring their conflicts to Bumpy instead. He became an unofficial arbitrator, settling beefs and preventing violence through negotiation and respected counsel. The guards noticed this immediately. Why would a crime boss care about keeping the peace in prison? The answer reveals Bumpy's strategic genius. He understood that chaos served no one's interests, least of all the inmates. Riots brought crackdowns. Violence brought lockdowns. Disorder brought misery for everyone. By maintaining relative peace, Bumpy actually improved conditions for himself and his fellow inmates. And the guards, who had the unenviable job of managing hundreds of dangerous men, found themselves in the unlikely position of relying on a prisoner to help them maintain order. This wasn't collaboration with the authorities. Bumpy never became a tool of the prison administration. Instead, he operated in a gray area, where his own interests and the interests of institutional stability occasionally aligned. The guards were smart enough to recognize this dynamic and, yes, to respect him for it. While other inmates spent their recreation time in the yard lifting weights or playing cards, Bumpy Johnson could often be found in the prison library. This wasn't unusual in itself. Many inmates used libraries to pass time, but Bumpy used it differently. He didn't just read for entertainment. He studied law, history, philosophy, and politics. He educated himself to a level that surpassed many college graduates. Guards would sometimes find him reading works by Machiavelli, Sun Tzu, or Marcus Aurelius. He'd discuss these texts with anyone willing to engage, including guards who were curious about what this enigmatic prisoner was learning. One former Alcatraz guard later recalled a conversation about the art of war that he had with Bumpy. The guard admitted that talking with Bumpy made him reconsider his assumptions about criminals and intelligence. Here was a man who could analyze military strategy from ancient China and apply its principles to modern power dynamics, all while serving a sentence in America's toughest prison. This intellectual curiosity earned Bumpy a different kind of respect from the guards. He wasn't just another thug who'd made bad choices. He was a formidable intellect who'd chosen a criminal path. That distinction mattered. The library became Bumpy's domain in a way that transcended the physical space. He encouraged other inmates to read, to educate themselves, to use their time productively. Guards observed that inmates who spent time with Bumpy often became calmer, more focused, less prone to violent outbursts. In essence, Bumpy Johnson was doing rehabilitation work that the prison system itself struggled to accomplish. And he was doing it not through official programs or institutional authority, but through personal example and persuasive mentorship. Even in prison, Bumpy Johnson remained a businessman. He understood economics, supply and demand, negotiation, and leverage. The prison economy, with its contraband cigarettes, food items, and favors, operated on principles that Bumpy understood instinctively. But here's where Bumpy differed from typical prison hustlers. He played fair. Guards noticed that when Bumpy made a deal, he kept it. When he said he'd do something, he did it. In an environment where deception was currency and betrayal was common, Bumpy's word meant something. There are accounts of Bumpy arbitrating disputes over gambling debts, stolen items, and territory within the prison. He didn't always side with the person who had the most power or who could offer him the most. He sided with whoever was in the right according to the unwritten codes that govern prison life. This fairness extended even to his interactions with guards. If a guard treated him with basic human dignity, Bumpy returned that respect. If a guard was fair in their enforcement of rules, Bumpy acknowledged it. He didn't automatically hate guards because they were guards and they noticed this. One retired corrections officer later recounted how Bumpy once told him, "You got a job to do, I got time to do. We can do this hard or we can do this with some dignity. I prefer dignity." That philosophy defined Bumpy's approach to incarceration. One of the most impressive aspects of Bumpy Johnson's power was that his imprisonment didn't diminish his influence on the outside. Through an intricate network of loyal associates, messages, and visitors, Bumpy remained connected to Harlem and continued to have influence over his operations. The guards knew this, of course. They monitored his correspondence and his visitors. But what amazed them was the loyalty Bumpy commanded. People on the outside didn't forget him, didn't betray him, didn't try to seize his territory permanently. They waited for him. This level of loyalty doesn't come from fear alone. Fear can maintain order temporarily, but it can't sustain an organization across years of separation. The loyalty Bumpy commanded came from something else, from the respect he'd earned through fair dealing, from the protection he'd provided, from the code he'd maintained. Guards would see visitors come to see Bumpy, and they'd observe the genuine affection and respect these people showed. These weren't intimidated subordinates going through the motions. These were people who genuinely cared about Bumpy Johnson and were committed to maintaining what he'd built. For prison guards accustomed to seeing inmates abandoned by friends and family, watching Bumpy's sustained connections to the outside world was remarkable. It demonstrated a depth of character and relationship that transcended his criminal activities. Prison is designed to strip away dignity. The uniforms, the constant surveillance, the loss of autonomy, the dehumanizing routines, all of it serves to remind inmates that they've lost their freedom and, to some extent, their identity. But Bumpy Johnson refused to be stripped of his dignity. He maintained impeccable grooming standards. He kept himself physically fit. He spoke with eloquence and precision. He walked with his head held high. Even in the most degrading circumstances, Bumpy carried himself like a man who knew his own worth. The guards noticed this immediately and instinctively respected it. There's something compelling about a person who refuses to be diminished by their circumstances. Bumpy didn't complain about conditions, didn't beg for special treatment, didn't grovel or plead. He served his time with quiet strength. One guard later wrote in his memoir about Alcatraz that Bumpy Johnson taught him something important about human dignity. "You can lock a man up," the guard wrote, "but you can't make him small unless he lets you." Bumpy Johnson never let anyone make him small. This dignity also manifested in how Bumpy treated others, including guards who might have expected hostility from him. He was polite, used proper titles, and engaged in civil conversation when appropriate. This wasn't obsequiousness. It was self-respect expressed through respecting others. In the brutal hierarchy of prison, the weak are preyed upon. Sexual assault, robbery, extortion, and violence target those who can't defend themselves. It's an ugly reality that guards try to prevent but often struggle to control completely. Bumpy Johnson became known as someone who protected vulnerable inmates. If someone was being targeted, if an inmate couldn't defend himself, Bumpy would intervene. Not for payment, not for favors, but because he believed in a code that included protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. Guards observed this pattern repeatedly. A young inmate being pressured by predatory older prisoners would suddenly find himself under Bumpy's protection. The pressure would stop immediately. The word would go out. This person was off limits. This protection extended to inmates of all races, which was particularly notable given the racial tensions that often divided prison populations. Bumpy, who fought fiercely for black empowerment in Harlem, nevertheless protected white inmates, Hispanic inmates, anyone who needed help. For guards trying to maintain a safe environment, this was invaluable. They couldn't be everywhere. They couldn't prevent every incident. But Bumpy's informal protection system filled gaps that the official system couldn't cover. Did the guards officially acknowledge this? Rarely. Could they officially condone an inmate exercising that kind of power? Absolutely not. But did they respect Bumpy for it? Undoubtedly. Bumpy Johnson's time in prison wasn't wasted time. He used it to learn, to grow, and surprisingly, to teach. Guards observed that Bumpy held informal classes for other inmates, teaching them to read, helping them understand legal documents, explaining strategies for appeals. He taught younger inmates how to carry themselves, how to avoid unnecessary trouble, how to use their time productively. He was particularly focused on helping younger black inmates understand their history and their potential. One former inmate later recalled that Bumpy told him, "The system wants to make you believe you're nothing but a criminal, that this is all you'll ever be. Don't let them define you. Define yourself." Guards who overheard these conversations couldn't help but notice the irony. Here was a career criminal encouraging young men to aspire to better lives, to avoid the mistakes he'd made, to find legal paths to success. Some guards were cynical about this, seeing it as manipulation or posturing. But others recognized something genuine in Bumpy's mentorship. He wasn't recruiting for his criminal organization. He was genuinely trying to help people avoid the path that had led him to prison. This added another dimension to the guards' respect for Bumpy. Whatever else he was also someone who cared about the next generation and tried to guide them toward better outcomes. Perhaps nothing earned Bumpy more respect from guards than his unexpected friendships and connections. He corresponded with intellectuals, artists, and even some law enforcement officials who'd come to respect him over the years. Most famously, Bumpy developed a relationship with Malcolm X during Malcolm's time in prison. Though they served time separately, they connected intellectually and philosophically. Both were intelligent black men who'd seen the worst of systemic racism and were searching for ways to empower their community. Guards who monitored Bumpy's correspondence found letters discussing politics, religion, social justice, and philosophy. This wasn't the typical prison correspondence they were used to seeing. These were substantive exchanges between serious thinkers. Bumpy also maintained friendships with some of the musicians, writers, and artists who'd known him in Harlem. He'd helped many of them when they were struggling, lending money, providing protection, enabling them to pursue their art. They didn't forget. For guards accustomed to seeing inmates receive fewer and fewer visitors as time passed, seeing Bumpy maintain these rich connections was impressive. It suggested depths to his character that transcended his criminal resume. One of the most respected qualities Bumpy Johnson demonstrated in prison was restraint. In an environment where respect often comes from violence, where conflicts escalate quickly, Bumpy was known for his ability to defuse situations without resorting to force. He had the reputation and the physical capability to hurt people if he chose. Everyone knew it, but he rarely made that choice. When insulted, he'd respond with cutting wit rather than fists. When challenged, he'd use psychology and reputation rather than violence. Guards noticed that Bumpy's mere presence often prevented fights. If he walked into a tense situation, things would calm down. His authority didn't require constant reinforcement through violence. It existed as an established fact that everyone accepted. This restraint was powerful because it was a choice, not a weakness. Bumpy could afford to be restrained because his capability was never in question. That's a sophisticated understanding of power that many people never develop. For guards who dealt daily with violence and the threat of violence, seeing someone who could command respect without constant aggression was refreshing and worthy of respect. When Bumpy Johnson was finally released from prison, he returned to Harlem as a legend. His time behind bars hadn't diminished his status. It had enhanced it. He'd survived Alcatraz and maintained his dignity, his principles, and his power. Guards who'd worked with him told stories. Some of these stories were probably embellished over time, but the core truth remained. Bumpy Johnson had been different. He'd commanded respect in an environment designed to strip people of everything worth respecting. Even after his release, some guards maintained indirect contact or followed news about him. When he died in 1968, several former corrections officers attended his funeral, an almost unheard-of gesture that testified to the unique respect he'd earned. The lessons Bumpy taught in prison outlived him. Inmates he'd mentored went on to better lives. The example he set of maintaining dignity under pressure, of adhering to a code, of using intelligence over violence, influenced generations of prisoners who heard his story. So why did even prison guards respect Bumpy Johnson? The answer isn't simple because Bumpy Johnson wasn't simple. They respected him because he maintained dignity when the system tried to strip it away. They respected him because he kept his word in an environment where betrayal was common. They respected him because he protected the vulnerable rather than preying on them. They respected him because he used his intelligence to build rather than just destroy. They respected him because he treated them with basic human decency even when he had every reason to view them as enemies. They respected him because his code of ethics, however different from conventional morality, was genuine and unwavering. Most importantly, They respected him because he forced them to see beyond categories like criminal and guard, good and bad. He was a complex human being who'd made serious mistakes and committed serious crimes, but who also demonstrated qualities worth admiring: loyalty, intelligence, dignity, and a fierce commitment to protecting his community. Bumpy Johnson spent a significant portion of his life in prison, but he was never truly imprisoned. His mind remained free, his dignity intact, his influence undiminished. The guards who were supposed to contain him ended up respecting him instead, not because he manipulated them or because he was soft, but because he demonstrated a quality of character that transcends the categories society uses to divide us. In the end, Bumpy Johnson's legacy in prison is a reminder that respect isn't given, it's earned. And it's earned not through violence or intimidation, but through consistency, integrity, and the courage to remain true to yourself even when everything is taken from you. That's a lesson that guards, inmates, and everyone in between can respect. That's why even prison guards respected Bumpy Johnson.